This interview is part of the History Heard project. The content of this interview may be used for historical research. However, no part of the video itself may be reproduced without the express written permission of an authorized representative of History Heard. Today is July 27th, 2012 at 10:30 a.m. This is an interview with Martin Yudkowitz in New York City, New York. He was born on April 2nd, 1954 in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. Mr. Yudkowitz is currently Senior Vice President of New Corporate Strategy, Business Development, and Technology at the Walt Disney Company. Before Disney, Marty was President of TiVo from 2003 through 2005. Before TiVo, spent 20 years at NBC, where he played a key role in virtually every area of the broadcast of the company, including news, sports, and entertainment in both cable and broadcast. After starting in the legal department, you moved into the sports arena, and in particular worked as Vice President of Business Affairs for the Seoul Olympics in 1988, NBC's first Olympics telecast, and then as Senior Counsel for the Barcelona Olympics in 1992. What exactly was your role in these Olympics, and is there a story that sticks out in your mind from these Olympic Games?
Well, the Olympics, as you point out, I started out in the law department, but I knew from the very beginning that I wanted to get out of the practicing of law. The law department was the right way into the company. When NBC did get the rights in 1986 to its first Olympics, the Seoul Olympics, that was an opening because people don't understand the extent of an Olympics production. It's obviously something they're very familiar with watching,
right.
But in terms of what it takes to get the Olympic rights and manage the Olympic rights and the production and the business behind it, it's kind of like starting a whole new company. It's like starting NBC or ABC from scratch.
Wow.
You have to hire hundreds and hundreds, about 1,400 new people that will work on the Olympics. Some of them will work the entire 2.5 years of planning and development. Some of them will work only for a couple of months just before and during the Olympics. You have to have your own sales staff, and hundreds of millions, and these days even into the $1 billion of ad sales have to be set up and arranged and sold and managed. The affiliates, all have to be, agreements have to be put in place because the cost of the Olympics is so great that the affiliates of the NBC television network have to contribute. Distribution, once there was cable, on cable, the production itself, of course, the technology itself, entire new studios had to be built, wow. Equipped with entirely new equipment that didn't even exist, that was invented for the sake of the Olympics. And people don't understand, because the Olympics is such a big high-profile stage for new technology, the big technology companies like Sony and Panasonic actually invent new technology for each Olympics. And back then, when the Olympics was only 4 years instead of every 2 years, it was a big deal. All of this had to be developed. All of this had to be bought and sold and arranged and organized. The guests alone, again, there's about 1,500 guests that NBC would take to an Olympics. Now, this was in Seoul. This is halfway around the world. So all of the logistics around doing something like that in waves of about 400 people per wave, with everything, 747s chartered, the music projects, the ancillary revenue projects. It's really a whole company. And NBC had never done it before in the first place. So it was starting a new company, not really knowing exactly what we were doing, but understanding what the vision was and what we wanted to accomplish. So there's the production side that people are used to. That's what they see on TV. And then there's the business side. And the business side starts with the negotiation of a very complex rights agreement with the International Olympic Committee and the United States Olympic Committee and the local organizing committee, in that case Seoul, later on Barcelona, all the way through to the actual production of the games itself. So it was great to sort of build that company from scratch. And I think the Olympics is probably the greatest event in the world. But the fact that it was the first, and we were sort of inventing how NBC does Olympics, having never done it before, that, it turned out, was really the highlight of the whole thing. Making it up as we went along, and then at the end, saying that, gee, it turned out kind of great.
Yeah, sure. And then You were also a cable network pioneer, and between the Seoul and Barcelona Olympics, you developed and helped launch CNBC at a time when cable networks were in their infancy. How did the idea for CNBC come about, and what was NBC's goal in launching the channel?
Well, it's hard to imagine today in that cable is not only a part of everyone's life and everyone accepts it and everyone virtually has it, but today people don't even distinguish much between cable and broadcast, and a lot of people wouldn't know that NBC or ABC is a broadcast company and CNBC and MSNBC is a cable company. Right. The distinction isn't all that important anymore. Back then, it was dramatically different. Cable was viewed as an almost farm league, almost amateurish type arena, and it wasn't taken very, very seriously. And in fact, most people, most of the executives at NBC didn't want to be in cable and thought it was a very bad idea, thought it would hurt the brand, thought it was a ridiculously small and irrelevant business. And there was a lot of opposition to it. But the ownership of NBC, leadership of Bob Wright and Jack Welch at General Electric, which owned NBC, they knew that there was a different business model going on there, entirely different business model, where in broadcast you get paid for how many people watch, selling advertising to those, to show to those people. In cable, you do sell advertising, but you also get paid by cable distributors, your cable company, Time Warner, Comcast, and so forth. And they pay whether people are watching or not. Right. And so there's a very reliable, steady business revenue there that you can predict very, very well. And that was very, very important. And we knew that that was going to grow enormously. And while it was only in tens of millions of homes at the time, we felt very, very strongly it was going to be in eventually 100 million homes, and it was going to be an enormous, important business. And there were certain niches that were going to be very, very valuable, and brands could be established. And we felt that business news was a niche that was going to be very, very important, and we want to establish that. So we developed it along the lines of that vision, and it was done almost completely independent of NBC itself. NBC News, which today is very, very close and a part of CNBC, had nothing to do with it whatsoever. They didn't want to touch it. Couldn't get your calls answered. They sent us off to New Jersey, separate facilities, and we started from scratch. And again, starting something that just didn't exist before was most of the fun.